Black Star Pirate Radio.
Across Toronto, the dial sits at 59 Fahrenheit under clear. Wind check, west-southwest at 9 miles an hour. Good evening, beautiful people. Across Toronto tonight, the dial sits at 59 Fahrenheit under clear skies. Wind check, west-southwest at 9 miles an hour. We're tuning into the internal compass tonight, exploring how we build self-worth that isn't dependent on borrowed light, how we assert unwavering autonomy in a world that constantly pushes for external validation. Let's start with a crucial global frequency, the two-state solution.
On this, a recent joint statement from over 40 Israeli and Palestinian civil society groups, including Combatants for Peace and Parents Circle Families Forum, was presented to EU and UN officials. They highlighted UN resolution to the Oslo Accords as foundational but eroding. A poll by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research in March 2024 showed only 34% of Palestinians and 39% of Israelis still believe a two-state solution is viable. This exposes the populations on both sides, particularly the 7.3 million Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, and 7 million Jewish Israelis, whose long-term security and self-determination are directly imperiled by the lack of a political horizon.
The cultural fabric here is tearing. When foundational agreements like Oslo become relics, it's not just policy failing, it's a collective memory being erased. The images of two hands, once clasped, now forced apart, each holding fragmented maps. International institutions like the UN and EU, whose long-standing diplomatic efforts and resolutions like UNSC Resolution 2334 are increasingly ignored, are exposed as well, losing their moral provenance.
Patching in a caller. You're on the signal.
Togee, this talk of unwavering autonomy seems distant when people's very homes are under threat. Who truly pays for this erosion of a two-state vision? What's the real cost beyond diplomatic language?
Static lifts for half a breath. The vinyl crackles under the needle. The line is live. Copy that, bringing it back to the main thread.
The direct cost is measured in human lives and sustained conflict, but an alternative path is a confederal model proposed by groups like A Land for All. This framework suggests two independent states maintain open borders, shared resources, think water management or joint administration of Jerusalem, and a joint governance structure for specific areas. It allows for freedom of movement and residency for citizens in both states, bypassing the need for full territorial contiguity.
Kylan highlights a critical structural vector. The chosen next move, then, is to actively support and scale grassroots cross-border initiatives that build shared economic and social infrastructure. This could involve funding joint tech hubs in East Jerusalem or agricultural cooperatives in the Jordan Valley, creating interdependencies that make future separation politically and economically disadvantageous. It builds provenance through shared creation, not just shared history. Now let's pivot to a different kind of architectural signal, one rattling a London borough.
Westminster City Council recently seized a social housing flat at Prince Regent Court, St. John's Wood in London. This unit had been rented for decades by the family of Sierra Leone's First Lady, Fatima Mata Bayo. The flat, intended for vulnerable families, was allegedly sublet for profit, while the First Lady resided primarily in Freetown. The council estimates the fraud cost taxpayers over $100,000 in lost rent and administrative costs. This exposes First Lady Fatima Mata Bayo to accusations of severe ethical breach and potential corruption, damaging the reputation of Sierra Leone's government.
This situation reflects a glaring disconnect in civic architecture, where the dignity of community housing is undermined by individual greed. It's like a vital artery meant for the city's most vulnerable is being siphoned off for personal gain. Westminster City Council is exposed for significant oversight failures in its social housing management, impacting approximately 3,000 families currently on their waiting list for affordable housing. The broader UK social housing system is also exposed for systemic vulnerabilities to abuse, eroding public trust and consent.
Our caller is back on the line, sensing the tremors.
So, a first lady using social housing meant for others. That's not just a monetary cost, it's a betrayal of trust. Who truly pays for this structural decay, and how do we even begin to rebuild that civic dignity?
The human cost is immense for those stuck on waiting lists, but there is an alternative. We could implement a mandatory annual residency audit program for all social housing tenants, utilizing council tax records, utility bill verification, and unannounced spot checks. This would be coupled with a public, anonymized ledger of housing allocations. Think of it as a blockchain for transparency, allowing community groups to flag discrepancies and ensure consent.
Let's tune into a global art scene making an interesting move. Paris Des Arts in Prague.
The Paris Des Arts Festival, traditionally a Parisian staple celebrating Francophone creativity, is holding a special edition in Prague, Czech Republic, from October 18 to 25. Venues like the National Gallery Prague and the Dock Center for Contemporary Art are hosting 50 French and Czech artists, including acclaimed contemporary sculptor Eva Žižičná and performance artist Baptiste Debombourg, exploring themes of crossroads and confluences. The French Ministry of Culture provided a grant of €500. This event challenges the traditional, sometimes insular perception of Paris as the singular epicenter of Francophone art.
This isn't just an art show, it's a recalibration of cultural gravity. The myth of Paris as the sole cultural sun is being playfully subverted, allowing new constellations to form. Prague's burgeoning role as a Central European cultural hub gains significant international validation, attracting global art patrons and fostering new collaborations. Both French and Czech artists receive expanded platforms and potential new markets, impacting their artistic provenance beyond national borders, building shared histories.
One final call for the night. You're on the signal. Patching in a caller. Go ahead.
So, Paris Des Arts in Prague. Sounds good, but is it just a temporary flirtation, or does it actually build lasting connections? What's the real value, and how do we ensure it's not just a one-off PR stunt?
That's a valid question about sustained impact. Instead of a temporary relocation, an alternative path involves establishing a permanent Paris Des Arts Satellite Institute in Prague. This would create a continuous exchange program for artists, curators, and scholars year-round, involving dedicated studio spaces and a biennial co-curated exhibition series. This fosters deeper, long-term artistic consent and collaboration, moving beyond a single event. Agency.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.